Show Some Skin 2023 PushBack. My name is Madeline O'Hara, and I am this year's Executive Director. So last year, Show Some Skin emerged. Grateful for having made it through a difficult past couple years, and hopeful for the new future that awaited us. Last year we emerged hopeful for a new normal, but has progress really been made? Or have we grown complacent in our gratitude at simply being here? These were the questions we asked you in the fall, and you all responded. Every monologue you will hear tonight is a true story from someone in the Notre Dame community. These stories are completely anonymous, meaning that our actors do not know whose stories they are performing. These stories contain both hope for the future and great pain from the past. And as such, a list of trigger warnings is provided in your program. I would like to make note of the beginning of Act 2, 10 things, is particularly triggering. So for audiences, please beware and take care of yourselves tonight. If at any point you feel the need to leave, you may get up and do so and come back in whenever you feel that you need to. Next, we want to thank everyone who made this show possible. Thank you firstly to all of our sponsors for their financial support, without whom this show would not have been possible. I want to thank Dr. Lucero for her guidance and leadership this past year. I want to thank Anna Lee, our executive producer, who's outside right now, Savannah Carr, our assistant producer, who's currently in Australia. Yeah, she's on a study abroad. I want to thank Sam Capodici, my assistant director, Tony Perez, who's backstage. I want to thank Emma LeBeau and Will Peeler for their dedication to the Show Some Skin mission. I also want to thank all of our actors who are here tonight for their dedication, their willingness to show up at every rehearsal and be here, and their willingness to lend their voices to these stories. Thank you also to the authors of these monologues, without whom we would not have a show. And thank you for sharing your most vulnerable experiences with not only our actors, but with a greater audience. Finally, I want to thank all of you in the audience. You show us, as actors, as a production team, and as authors, that these stories do matter and that they hold intense value. Thank you for being here, for listening to new perspectives, and for hopefully learning something new. Thank you for allowing these stories to be more than just words on a page. We created Show Some Skin 12 years ago with the intention of bringing truth to the scope of identity at this school. This show balances criticism and love for our community. And as you listen to these stories, we want you to ask yourself, in your own life, what are you pushing back against? And what do we as a community need to push back against to make the world a more loving and safe place? So thank you for joining us tonight, and please enjoy the show.
Imagine, if you will, a world in which everything was the way you most wanted it to be. Maybe you think the sky would look better in pink. Or maybe you wish that people wouldn't kill each other ever. Maybe vegetables should taste like candy. Maybe people shouldn't live in abject poverty. Do you wish you had superpowers? Would sickness and suffering still exist?
What does that say about you? Are you a terrible human because you didn't think to solve every human problem imaginable?
Would solving all human problems even be the right thing to do? Like, should we be taking into account how prioritizing humans affects other living beings?
Is it so wrong for my ideal world to contain suffering? Isn't suffering essential for the human condition? If we didn't have suffering, we wouldn't strive for anything.
Our shared pain brings us together, and sharing our stories of suffering gives insight into what makes each of us so unique.
Could we really be so special if we didn't have trauma to make us that way?
Sure, everyone has their own distinct genetic predispositions for different traits and attitudes on life. That's why my ideal world is different from yours, or even yours.
How do you define yourself? Do your genes define you? Couldn't there be hundreds of thousands of people that are similar to you then?
What makes you truly unique?
Lived experience. Part of that is painful. Pain brings change, and change distinguishes us. I play pretend in a world full of hurt. This world has so much that shapes me, It is so close to the reality, the gritty reality that pretending is supposed to be an escape from. The difference is, I pretend I can control my fate.
I'm terrified of dating, especially on a campus like Notre Dame. While my friends worry about being smart or pretty enough, I worry about being denied because I'm simply not his type. Not the white type, that is. I never know how people will perceive me, so I simply choose not to be perceived. All my life, I've never acted on any of my crushes and just stayed in the background. I would rather spend my life wondering what could have been rather than being told right to my face, or even worse, behind my back that I'm not good enough because of my skin color. And it's not just the main man that I'm worried about. Maybe he's a decent guy and loves me for me. I'm also scared to see how those around him react. Like his roommate, who said the N-word up until his first year of college because he didn't know he shouldn't say it. And yet, he still slips up sometimes. Poor guy. Or his mother, who always clutches her purse as she's walking down the street and sees a black person coming, because she doesn't know if they're a thug. And don't forget the look she gives them when she notices they're not looking. How about his father, who's a police officer and doesn't see color, yet always pass on a black person a little too much and asks way too many questions? Or his little sister, who copies her parents' mannerisms and doesn't befriend any kids of color in her class. Hey, monkey see, monkey do. Even consider his aunt, that always touches a black person's curly hair without permission and says, wow, it's just so kinky and unique. You know, that afro just wouldn't look professional in the workplace. I wonder how you maintain it. FYI, if you didn't know, now you know. You cannot touch my hair. You see, it's not just you. It's who you surround yourself with. I might feel safe with you, but with them, I never will be. So I hope I get to be in a happy relationship with someone who loves me one day. But for now, I guess, I'll just stay in the background, hoping you don't see the way I look at you.
The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Psalm 118, verse 6. Sometimes I feel like God hates me. But as much as God hates me, my fellow man hates me even more. It's as if the whole world has been against me from the very beginning. Obviously, none of this is true, but it's nice to have someone to blame other than myself. One of my earliest memories was in my bed, wrapped in my sheets, trying to ignore my mother's tears. I wanted her to stop crying. But given the circumstances, I may have been wanting too much. My father had just told us he was diagnosed with amyloidosis, a rare and then fatal blood disorder, and all I could do was lie there. For the next 7 years, I didn't see my parents a lot. They weren't there when I realized I was gay. They weren't there when I was groomed online. They weren't there when I was molested. They weren't there when I took my first shot of vodka. I couldn't ask them for help. I didn't want to distract them from making my dad better. Instead, for most of high school, I buried my fears behind drugs, alcohol, and self-harm. I hated myself, and I thought everyone else would too. And when I finally worked up the courage to come out and tell my classmates about my struggles, my worst fears were confirmed. I was edged out of friend groups for being gay, called a bitch for engaging in self-harm, and encouraged to continue my self-destructive behaviors for the amusement of others. I didn't have an identity outside of self-loathing, and I thought that if I tried to love myself, I would lose all connection to reality. Nothing terrified me more than being alone, so I dedicated my life to alcohol. I was drinking 7 days a week and blacking out whenever I could. I thought it would bring me closer to people, but instead, it pushed me away from them. I was ignoring the advice and support of the people I was so desperate not to lose. Instead, I let the waves of despair knock me over, and I refused to get back up again. As long as I had a bottle in my hand, I was happy. I couldn't hide behind alcohol forever, though, and you can't hide anything from your mom. One night I had too much to drink, and I got into a heated argument with my mother. I don't remember the details, but the next morning I woke up with a horrible headache and a sense of dread. My mother knew everything. Unlike me, she didn't give up. Just as she pushed my father through chemo and countless transplants and ultimately saved his life, she pushed me to be more than just an alcoholic. She fought me every step of the way, and I hated her for it. She was cruel and heartless, and just what I needed to emerge from the pit of suffering into which I had dug myself. She pushed me to reclaim my faith, take responsibility for my actions, and move towards a life that would give me meaning. She didn't care if I hated her. She just wanted me to be healthy and happy. More importantly, she showed me that someone did care. Someone cared about me and was on my side and would spare no personal expense to save my life. This was a reckless, selfless, wholehearted love that I didn't deserve. My mother's not perfect, but if she can love me, there's no way that God can't. After all, he did lay down his life to save me. Today, I'm 90 days sober. Not a day goes by where I don't wish I could drink. But every day, I'm reminded of the blessings that God has given me, because I can finally say no. I'm healthier, happier, and more productive than ever before. I can wake up without pain and regret from the night before, and I can find joy in things I had forgotten in my boozy, delusional haze. More importantly, I can look at myself in the mirror and see a reflection of God's mercy. Instead of facing my fears, I buried myself in the covers of alcoholism. I felt warm and safe. But I knew that there was a whole world out there and people who loved me. I needed to push back the covers and see the light. I needed to walk into the real world, but I was scared to be vulnerable. However, through love, I could find the strength to move forward. And what greater love is there than the one who laid down his life for a friend? The Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me?
I feel bad. I really do. I just really want him to die. But not like that, though. I'm not trying to kill anyone. It's not even like I think he deserves to die. He's a good person, a great one even. And I know that if things were different, he'd love me for who I am. But when I go to see my grandpa, I have to pretend to be someone I'm not. He has deteriorated so much that he doesn't have the ability to understand that I am not the person he remembers me as. It hurts to see him like this. Because I know that if he had still been mentally there, he would understand why I cannot bear to hear my dead name when talking to him. He would love me as his grandchild, no matter what. But his mind is working overtime just to keep the memories he has. And he wouldn't understand what I mean when I ask him to call me by the right name or use the right pronouns. At least that's what they tell me. It's their excuse to use my dead name as much as they can in front of me. And it's okay if they misgender me because he was in the general area. So, yeah. I'm just waiting for him to die. Maybe then they'll start giving me basic respect.
I see my identity lit out before me like a tapestry. I grab the scissors. Well, the text at the bottoms are jokes and idioms that don't translate right into English, so I'll trim those off first. It's all right. It's a beautiful tapestry without the extra garnish. Ah, but that scene. That experience I lived through might be too upsetting for the allies to hear about. I'll snip that and replace it with a smiley face. If they find out I'm not perfect, they might think everyone like me is bad, so I better take out all the spots and mistakes in them. You know, I'm starting to think the colors I use are a bit too bright. People are starting to stare. I'll trim those parts back too. My tapestry is pared back until all that's left are a few strings tied to an image of a golden dome. Perfect! That'll make a nice, neat, endy introduction. I snip and fold and unravel.
You know, I never really understood why people would make such a big deal about priests taking a vow of chastity. I mean, what was really so special about abstinence? After all, the only real reason I ever saw myself wanting sex was to have kids. Raising a family could be a cool thing to do, I reasoned, never once considering that there might be something about that view on sex that was anything but normal. Since then, I've found that most people really like sex, and some of them can't get enough of it. I wondered if my feelings about sex just meant I had to be gay, because I didn't want sex in the way the Catholic Church told me I ought to. Then I figured I was bi. I just was a particularly unhorny kind of bi. But maybe, out there in the world, there are some people of unknown gender who I could, in theory, possibly, maybe just consider fucking. Of course. Since I never knew what those theoretical individuals were like, I jumped between labels of straight, gay, and bi. The term asexual eventually came into my vocabulary, as I felt the need to call my condition by something. It was a very accidental coming out, I suppose. I never really had a period when I wasn't out, more just a time before I knew what to call myself. I do recall, though, upon first telling people I considered myself asexual, getting the response of, "Oh yeah, like a plant," among increasingly worse reactions. Well, you see, that one sort of stuck with me, because I knew a thing or two about plants, including that most of them reproduce sexually. I really am not a plant. I am somehow more different from everyone around me than a stinking plant. Of course, there are plenty of people who simply somehow knew me better than I knew myself, who would tell me I hadn't found the right person yet. And, maybe you're gay. Have you considered that? Come to think of it, that was most people's reaction. Because God forbid I exist without being in some way sexual. Even though no one ever said it, everyone was telling me that sex is an integral part of being human. Those are the more positive reactions. Some people thought something must have happened to make me ace. Like I must have been sexually assaulted or something. Ironically, that only happened after coming out. Should have told him to do it years before. They insisted on knowing my sexual history, like my lack of voluntary sex was evidence against my asexuality, rather than for it. All of that was going to be better with queer people. They have similar struggles. They would definitely understand what I'm going through. Or so I had hoped. Apparently, I am not like you, since the scope of identity at this school is based around who people want to fuck, and neither is not a recognized option. Beyond the erasure of asexuality, there's also the constant implication that I am not queer enough. So much of the focus is on liking certain people that they forget that some of us simply don't. Events, discussions, and so on show a glimpse of what it's like to be queer, but almost never display asexuality. I want to change that. I wish I could end on a happy note. I wish I could say I finally found acceptance, or even that all those people were right, and I just needed to find the right person. But it's not true. I am a whole and complete person. I don't need to change who I am to be complete. I just wish everyone else would realize that. I still need to push back against their stereotypes.
Last year, I got sick and lost some weight. It wasn't that much, but those few pounds made me go from being average-sized, if not already on the smaller side, to being petite. And for whatever reason, people love that. I started getting a kind of attention I'd never gotten before. I received free drinks from bars and free sushi from restaurants. Friends gushed about how different I looked from freshman year. I received compliments and invitations to dates over social media. Girls I didn't know that well wanted to get lunch together to gossip about boys. Young, old, man, woman. It didn't matter. Everyone suddenly wanted to be around me. A part of me thinks I could be grateful for this attention, but honestly, I don't deserve it. I didn't even mean to lose the weight, and I didn't lose it in a healthy way either. Even more worrying, though, is that people treat me nicely because of the way I look, rather than the way I act, which doesn't seem fair. Why do I suddenly deserve to be treated better than before? I was just as nice before, just as funny and smart and kind. Pretty privilege has a price. I've come to chase after the affirmation that my new body has given me. If I'm not wearing at least concealer and mascara, I feel naked. I see conventionally attractive girls on social media and wonder what I have to do to look like them. I don't eat for fear of gaining the weight back. And I feel vapid and shallow for caring about any of that. None of that shit should matter, but it does because I remember how invisible I was before I did care. Every time I get a compliment, I'm told that all of this obsessing over how I look and what I wear and how much I eat does matter, and that it's good because of how good I look now. I didn't start to matter to people until after I started caring. And to go from feeling like I matter, even if it's just because I'm more attractive, to going unnoticed again would hurt more than never having felt pretty in the first place. It's worth sacrificing my self-esteem for people to be a bit nicer to me. I don't even know who I am anymore. Sure, people might notice me, but I don't recognize myself. I wear mascara and concealer to cover dark circles that never went away after I got sick. My hip bones stick out and my jeans no longer fit. I used to have curves that made me soft and huggable, but now I'm angular and sharp. And I want to go back to before I didn't care, but then I'd lose all of this attention that I've come to crave. So what was so wrong with me before that I didn't deserve to be treated like I mattered back then? Why do I only matter if I'm deemed fuckable?
Years of missing school. Years of having to teach myself from a hospital bed. Years of asking for online opportunities, makeup assignments, any kind of grace. Years of getting no help, even though I had to put my health first. And then able-bodied people had to put their health first too. In fact, they now encouraged it. They gave every opportunity to do so. Makeup assignments, online opportunities, grace and understanding. I asked for years. But like the masks on our faces, one was put on mine for a lifetime.
We hoped for the world to understand after they experienced what it was like. But soon, the world opened up once again, and the need to prioritize health went with it. Now, once again, we beg for the opportunity of a fair education in spite of our health. But our health doesn't matter. Now they pass policies that don't allow professors to record classes for disabled or sick students. No, your health doesn't matter. Maybe it never did.
If we actually cared, we would have a disability center staffed with more than 3 people.
A student with a hearing disability would be able to take their chemistry class and not have to drop it because no accommodations are made when a professor wears a mask.
Wheelchair users would be allowed at the table, but here at Notre Dame, they cannot even enter every building.
Students would be able to attend every class and not have to be stranded in their dorm room when it's too icy or the snow is so thick their ability aids don't work.
Whose health matters? Maternal mortality rates aren't just unfair due to biology. And students with dyslexia don't just get lower grades because of their disability. Students with ADHD don't just score lower on exams. And students with disabilities aren't just by chance not fully represented on campuses. No, students are being denied accommodations.
So I ask you, whose health matters? You would think we have a reason to care. Or at least your own Catholic university would.
Dear my 120-pound body, goodbye. Not see you in a bit, not I hope to see you, not I miss you. Goodbye. You used to fit in size 2 dresses, and you could borrow clothes from anyone because they'd always fit. And if they didn't, they looked intentionally oversized. Now, sometimes I can't find jeans that fit in stores. Tight dresses show lumps and indents and would be enormous looking on you. And I'm happier. A 120-pound body. I am sorry that you existed for so long. I am sorry that I tried to resurrect you for so long. A 120-pound body. I am so sorry that I didn't let you eat. And I'm sorry that I put all my worth in you and all that pressure on you to not change. I am sorry. Because a 120-pound body, you deserved more than that. You deserved to want to be in photos, and you deserved to eat lunch. I promise. You did deserve that. You didn't know it, but your existence was all wrong. You did know that your existence wasn't a happy one, and I promise it wasn't because you were too big like you thought. 120-pound body used to look at others and be envious of their flat stomachs and perfect hair. 120-pound body, if you could see happiness, you would be envious of me now. 120-pound body used to fear that others would look at your legs a day after shaving and hate that they were already prickly. But mine are hairy, and my thighs are chubby and full of stretch marks, and I want to show them off because I love them. A 120-pound body. There is no room in my life for you. That may hurt, but it is true. And you're not allowed to come back because I know the sacrifices I'd make to let you back, and they're not worth it. They never were. Dear 120-pound body, a part of me really hates to say goodbye, to make it permanent, to acknowledge that you cannot come back, but a 120-pound body, you cannot be here any longer. 120-pound body. I'm sorry that's your name. I'm sorry that you knew your number, and I hope you're jealous that I don't know mine.
He's everything. He's my world. Ever since I came out, he's been right there. Someone I know would protect me. With him, I am always safe. He's so special. I don't understand why people don't seem to grasp that. The way he goes about life is so uniquely his own. He deserved to live like this forever. He isn't perfect. Obviously, no one is. Oh, well. On second thought, he is perfect. Every flaw is just something new to learn about him. Autism just means that we do some things differently. Sure, it isn't always easy having to calm him down when the fire alarm goes off in the building, or talking him into eating at least one meal a day. But if anything, times like these, they bring me closer to him. They give me the opportunity to understand how he experiences life. So I am thankful for little moments like these. They give me even more reason to love all of him. He's so good at communicating. I find myself wishing more people talk like him. We have a level of trust I almost never see with other people. He knows me. He's so adorable. The sort of person you would give the world for in a heartbeat. And yet, he's so strong. He's been through so much more than any of you could ever imagine. And still, he finds the strength to keep going. Even when life pushes him down and steps on his throat and refuses to let him up, he finds a way to continue. I want to listen to everything he could ever have to say. I want to listen to everything that's ever crossed his mind. I could listen to him forever. I could talk all day about how smart I know he is, smarter than anyone you would ever meet, and how caring and compassionate I know he can be. But every couple should want to oversell each other, right? Although I'm not. I am most fascinated by how he always knows how to respond to whatever I'm feeling. I found myself unable to cry, even at my most emotional. I always thought that was the right way to live. He was the first person I cried to. He opened my emotions to me, taught me to truly feel them and truly live them. He's grown so much, taking leadership wherever he goes. I have seen him cut out people who hurt him and find solutions to every problem that he faces. He claims that he couldn't have done this without me, and that I am the reason he's so good. That is, if he ever admits to being good in the first place. That's the only thing he's ever been wrong about. He gives me reason to exist. He makes my life so happy, something that I thought was impossible just a few years ago. So I will never understand why people think he is lesser or incapable of love for being autistic, or for a host of other differences he constantly faces. He's not lesser than. He's everything.
I remember I was in 6th grade when my sexuality was defined for me. 6th grade? You're like what, 11 or 12 years old? I never even thought about sexuality at that point. But a group of guys came up to me, asking me if I liked guys, and they went through a very extensive list of reasons why they thought I was gay, as if I were some science experiment. You know, I never understood some people's sheer obsession with someone else's business before they get a chance to understand themselves first. I still feel a bit slighted or a type of way about it. Like I never got the chance to grow into my own. Like my sexuality was thrust upon me before I was even ready. After that, it was a bit of a struggle. I was marked. I was different. I stood out, and for all the wrong reasons. I wanted to figure out how to stop being that thing. But I did figure it out. I guess they were right. Things really do get better. In college, I came out to my friends. Thankfully, they all still accepted and loved me. Yay. And then I moved to Chicago. Chicago was my renaissance. For the first time, I could experiment with how I looked and who I liked. I could explore aspects of myself that I never even knew existed. For once, all the things that people in my past saw as faults were finally celebrated. And that confidence propelled me into law school. I was really excited about coming to Notre Dame. I mean, come on. Campus is absolutely gorgeous. One of the best law schools in the country. But I don't know, just when I got here, it wasn't what I expected. I will admit, it's hard to tell a professor's political views, which is important, you know, neutrality of the law and all that. But I don't know, like, I felt like I wasn't enough. I would hear laughter when I strutted down the halls, when I would pretend like it was my own runway. People, professors even, would give me that kind of look where you can feel eyes intensely studying you. When I would show up to class or office hours with nail polish on. But it wasn't even the school that gave me pause. One time, I wore a bunch of glitter to a football game. We went to Brothers after. And some dude stopped my friend to ask, what's wrong with him? What was wrong with me? Could you imagine that? A man wearing glitter indicates that there's something wrong with him. After that, I began to think I didn't belong. I pored over every detail, ripping apart every aspect of my personality to figure out what was wrong with me. It was like I took a huge step back into the closet. I began to edit myself. I changed the way I walked, made sure my voice would sound extra deep. And you would never see any nail polish on me. No, I didn't want anything to be wrong with me. And you know what? I know there's nothing wrong with me. I know I'm unique. I know I'm smart. I know I belong. No, I deserve to be here. But you know what? This shit is absolutely exhausting. I'll be honest with you, I'm tired. Do you think an obviously straight white man, whatever obviously straight even means, has to deal with any of this shit? Do you think they're hyper aware of the way they sound, making sure they don't swing their hips too much or else that'll give it away? Do you think they have to be aware of every little detail because anything too feminine will destroy any shred of credibility they have? Do you think they have to fight to be respected? No. They're perfect just the way they are. All they have to worry about is if their shirt is pressed enough, if every little strand of hair is slicked back enough, if they smell good enough. All they have to do is show up, and that'll always be good enough. It was a bad day, and I decided to take a walk across campus. Being Hispanic, I grew up in the faith, grew up Catholic. And I know what the doctrine says about homosexuality. I get that. But the aesthetic, being in the presence of something bigger than me, calms me down. That day, I walked towards the statue of Jesus, you know, the one where he's looking at the dome. Etched into the statue is Venite admet omnes. Come to me, everyone. Everyone. There are no conditions imposed. All Jesus asks of us is to come to him. No matter our state, no matter our imperfections, just come to him. And then I walk into a classroom and I witness the hypocrisy Jesus despised. Do you think the professor, he lists the conspiracy elements But I know that he thinks that I don't deserve the same rights he has because something that I cannot change. I look at the cross and I don't see salvation. All I see is judgment. I know my sexuality doesn't define me, but my queerness is all that they can see. I know I'm worthy in his eyes. But when will I be worthy in their eyes? For once, I'd just like to be enough.
Growing up, I always understood sexual assault to be something which only women dealt with. Devastating, and something which needed to stop. But nonetheless, something which I should have been safe from. I figured that, as a guy, I was safe. He was my friend. I had reached out, extending a token of friendship to someone who my classmates bullied. We had talked about things I had never told anyone else before. We had similar interests, and were both in the top of our class. There might have even been something there, something more than just friends, given enough time. But that's not how things worked out. Even afterward, I couldn't understand what had happened. I made so many excuses. It was my fault. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. Other people have it worse. The list went on and on. What I did know, without a shadow of a doubt, was that things would have gotten much worse if I had taken any more time to react. I was fortunate. Most others are not. But I am still scarred from the experience, no matter how good I might have had it. Recovering from the incident took time, obviously. But what took even longer was coming to terms with what I had experienced. I didn't stop being functional, which meant it couldn't have been that bad, right? No one had to know what I went through. I could just pretend like it never happened, and no one will have to feel anything different about me. Guys are supposed to be tough. But with time, I've come to understand that this was not my fault. That he did this to me. I wasn't immune to stuff like this. He sexually assaulted me. So that's what it was.
It's not my preferred name. They're not my preferred pronouns. It's my fucking name. They're my fucking pronouns.
Dear Professor, thank you for a wonderful first day of class. I look forward to being here this fall, and I really loved our chat after class today. Let's make 2022 a great one. All the best, your favorite student. Hi, So I just tested positive for COVID. UHS sent me back to my dorm, said to stay there a few days until I feel better. So here's my homework for the week. I know you like it when I submit my assignments early. And sorry if it doesn't make sense. I've got a headache. Best, your favorite student. Hey, sorry I haven't gotten that paper in yet. I know I'm already a day past the deadline, but can I have another? I still love your class. It's just been hard lately. I can't sleep. Sincerely, your favorite student. Hey, I'm gonna take today off to think. I've got a lot on my mind. Deadlines, appointments, where I've been, where I'm going, and I just need a few minutes to process it all. Just a few minutes. I hope it won't be any inconvenience. Thanks, your favorite student. Hi. Sorry I wasn't in class today, or yesterday, or last week either. I've just been looking towards my future, and I don't see much. I still love your class, but once I'm done with it, it's just mindless work. I saw the groundskeepers ripping up flowers by the dorm today. They replace them every 2 weeks so that no visitors ever see a wilting flower at Notre Dame. Maybe they should do the same with students too, because the football fans want to see me smiling to fit their image of a good Notre Dame student. But I am tired of being part of their fantasy. I will move on to a world that doesn't care about me, and this school will try to profit off my nostalgia for the rest of my days. Professor, what's the point of playing along? What's the point of learning how to think when at my job they will teach me to do the same thing over and over, 8 hours a day, every day until I kill myself? In light of these circumstances, I hope you can excuse my absence from class tomorrow. Bye, your favorite student.
My girlfriend's skin is a map of the battles she's fought and won. She struggled with self-harm and finally managed to quit. Her cuts healed into pale pink scars as she learned to love herself in short sleeves. A physical sign of her healing. She touches them every now and then, full of gentleness for that past self, and joy in how far she's come. I also self-harmed for years, but you wouldn't know it from looking at me. My skin healed quickly and perfectly. I never slowly revealed my skin to the world again. Never learned to love my body again. I look at my past self with contempt. That idiot couldn't do anything right, not even cut. I know it's the dumbest thing to be jealous of, but I wish my skin held my memories like hers. Maybe if I had scars on my body, I wouldn't have open wounds in my mind. Maybe people wouldn't assume I don't understand their mental health struggles. Maybe in healing my body, my soul would have healed too.
Dear future self, I start every journal entry with Dear Future Self and hope that in 5 years I'll love my former self for having faux profound thoughts and feelings and be able to go, look at how silly I was. I thought I was so clever. As if in 5 years I'll be any more clever and not still trying to win my own love for myself. I recently started smoking cigarettes when I'm sad because I like the way it characterized my sadness. I am the woman, clad in lingerie and a sheer robe, at rock bottom, sitting on the floor by the window with her legs crossed. Just so. A cigarette in one hand and a bottle of red wine in the other. Furrowing her brow, she takes a drag and lolling her head back to puff out the smoke and watch it disperse above her head. Her neck is long and slender, and her side profile is the subject of envy. She can come up with so many flowery metaphors about smoking cigarettes and cancer sticks and slowly killing herself, but it's okay because she does it in a sleek, sexy European way. A good for her kind of way. A beautiful train wreck you can't look away from. But I can't even feel the nicotine unless I'm drunk. I order beer at restaurants because I want to be a beer person. And I want to be one of the boys, and this is one of the ways to do so. Drinking beer with 13 boys and trying not to think about what it means that I'm the only girl that they invited. Because it feels good to be the only girl, even when I don't want to be a girl at all. And I grab the glass and I take a sip and I wrinkle my nose at the taste because I hate it. But only to myself, because I don't want anyone else to know that I don't like it. That I've never liked the taste or smell of alcohol, but still go, wow, that one's good when I try a new IPA. Even though I want nothing more than to go back to only drinking water. But that's a lie, because I like that I feel tragic and interesting drinking beer I don't like with boys that I desperately do. But not like that. Only as friends, because I can't fathom being in love with one of the boys I forced myself to drink beer for. The idea of that tastes worse than the beer. I always look at myself in the mirror when I cry because I want to see if I look pretty with mascara-stained tear tracks on my flushed cheeks and long white eyelashes. I'm proud when you can see my tear tracks when I take a picture with flash on. I look tragic, but not too tragic. Just enough to solicit an, "Aw, are you okay?" But not enough for any genuine concern, because I don't need that. I can handle this on my own, but if you'd like to be concerned for me, please do, because that's why the picture is on my private story. My makeup ran perfectly this time. And I'll tell myself that I'm surprised and touched that you reached out. But secretly I'm sad that so-and-so didn't say anything, even though it's time to remove him from my private story anyways. I always stop crying after I look at myself in the mirror. Too embarrassed by how ugly I look in the act. I'm only tragic and beautiful when a single tear makes its way to my chin. Actual sobbing is not beautiful. Or maybe it is. When I bury my face in my pillow and hug my shivering body tight enough that I can feel all of my ribs and appreciate how skinny I am. Because that's where my value comes from as a person assigned female at birth. And in between cries, I think to myself, wow, I am incredibly pitiful. But how wonderful it is to feel so intensely. But I don't want to see it, because it only sounds beautiful in theory, and it's ugly in practice. Just like me. So I stop under my own scrutiny, scrubbing my face clean and putting ice on my eyelids to prevent swelling, and finding some sort of satisfaction in my independence and ability to take care of myself as a high-functioning, mentally ill, sad girl. If that's what I am. Who am I? I'm always watching myself from outside of myself. I overthink what's real and what isn't when it comes to my sense of self, and I try on labels that don't seem to really fit me. Young, relatively. Black, I'm biracial. Girl, I still don't have time to unpack my gender dysphoria. And I tell my friends that I don't have a personality. And still they say, Kay, You have the most personality out of anyone I know. And I feel good. And also bad. Because I know that I do all the things I do in order to look fun and beautiful to my future self, who is always watching me from afar. I don't know how to do things for myself that's watching me right now. Or how to find a self that knows how to look away altogether and knows to only look forward. Or maybe I do. And I just want to be someone who can't. Because that someone is feminine and beautiful and tragic and smokes cigarettes and drinks beer with boys who aren't her boys and cries in a way that turns her mascara into art on her cheeks. I always sign my journal entries, love always, K. Ever since 7th grade because, well, after reading Perks of Being a Wallflower, because that's how Charlie signed his letters. And he was beautiful and tragic. I want to say that I'll love you always, okay? But it's easier to leave that up to my future self. Love always, okay.
Here are the 10 things that I carry with me. If you choose to listen, you'll take a little of that weight and carry it yourself. Consider this your warning. 1, primary caregiver doesn't even begin to describe it. My dad was my best friend. We were two entwined souls, father and child. Peas in a pod. It's been 2 years since he died. I was home for fall break, and he had a heart attack while working out, and he hit his head pretty hard on the way down. He was very, very dead, but I still tried to revive him with CPR. What do you do when your most horrible fear comes true? How can you ever love a person again? I didn't know a human head could fit that much blood. I wonder if my happy childhood memories were stored in the little pieces of brain scattered all over the ground, like so much fucking garbage. Grief fucks you up bad. Every night, I would dream of him making a miraculous recovery and coming home. And every damn morning, I had to wake up and lose him all over again. Two, I'm obsessed with that blood. I can't get it out of my head. I was inconsolable for 2 weeks. 3, a month later, my girlfriend starts asking me to tell her where I am during the day out of concern. A month after that, she starts telling me that my friends are a bad influence on my healing. I shouldn't see them anymore. She starts defining when I should wake up and go to sleep, when I should skip an assignment to spend more time with her, what I should say, and what I shouldn't. I let her. All I do these days is lie there and watch TV. A little imposed structure might help. Until I break one of her rules, she alternates between yelling and ignoring me for 3 days. just like my mom used to do when I was small. I ask her what her problem is, and she says, "Don't you owe me this for putting up with you those first 2 weeks after your dad died?" I tell her I can't meet her impossible standards. She says she'll kill herself if I don't. I wonder now if she was just waiting for me to show my vulnerability from the very beginning. What the fuck do I do? 4. My dad would have known what to do. 5. I can't stop thinking of that fucking blood. I put sleeping pills in my mouth and a razor to my arm. I play video games and let myself bleed. My dad died during his favorite hobby, and everyone said that I was his mini-me. At some point, I fall asleep, but not for good. I dream of my father's miraculous recovery again, but this time, he won't even look at me. 6. My girlfriend shows me a poem that she wrote about me. It describes me as a false king on a blow-up throne, putting my feelings before everyone else's. I can't take this. I push back. She sends me 3 different suicide notes over the next week, insisting the only way she'll survive is if I take back my breakup. Maybe she's right about me being a narcissist, since I don't fucking care what she does anymore. I know now that she never went through with those threats, since she still badmouths me to this very day. 7. My mind can't take it anymore. I snap. I'm not crying like I did in secret moments during those first 2 weeks of grief. No, I'm taking winter walks in my underwear, hearing secret messages in my music. I start thinking that killers are waiting for me outside of my dorm. I tell my roommate that I already ate, but the truth is, I ran out of food stores 3 days ago. I lose 10 pounds before I'm declared full crazy. 8. I'm sent to the UCC. I talk in general terms since the therapist starts getting freaked out when I get too gruesome with the details of what happened to my dad. They tell me that I'm depressed and give me pills that make my hands shake. 9. Against all odds, I get better. No thanks to my therapist's pitying face or my mother's screaming voice over the phone, now that she's my guardian. I decide to go out for a walk, and I run into one of the friends that my girlfriend had banned me from seeing. She invites me to lunch. I join a club and go to all their meetings. I turn in an assignment early. I resent that I'm getting better. I don't know who I'd be without this pain. I leave a scar in the shape of a bracelet on my arm as a monument to my suffering. 10. The second anniversary of my dad's death just passed. My new friends don't know about him or my ex. They just know that I tell great jokes and I spend as little time alone as possible. And that's all they need to know. That's how I came back from the unthinkable. how I pushed back against the events that killed the person I used to be. I am born anew. I parent myself. My bracelet scar is barely visible. And at night, I dream of walking in gardens. Thank you for carrying my 10 things with me. In return, I'll help carry a few of yours. If you remember nothing else from this, remember my dad. Remember him gentle and kind and smiling, as I do.
My first partner broke my nose the night I lost my virginity. It wasn't intentional, I don't think. Their elbow flew back and caught me in just the wrong way. But it happened. And it was only after they got off that they thought, maybe there shouldn't be this much blood. I've never felt that. The whole everything else fades away horniness, the blood pulsing in your ears, whatever it's supposed to be. The pain of being single, getting drunk at a party and wanting nothing more than to find someone. I've done it because my partners wanted to. Because that's what they wanted me for. Because if I didn't, I wasn't really a man. I've been told that guys are supposed to take the lead. It's my job to ask girls out. It's my job to take charge, to not complain, to plan and pay for dates, to have, I don't know, sexual fantasies and types and all of that, to buy flowers. I didn't feel like dating after the first time. I couldn't tell who was broken. Them for wanting it so bad that my pain became background noise, or me for never wanting it at all. Yet, while I was avoiding people, she found me. The first person to call me pretty instead of handsome, to buy me rings and perfume. She doesn't push, and neither do I. It took a long time to feel safe again. But she brings me flowers. You know how often a guy gets flowers? Hand-picked, not bought because she can't stand to waste the money. I still don't get it. The whole sexuality thing. But she brings me flowers. I feel safe in her arms. And her heartbeat feels like home.
So I'm in the second floor study room of Hez working on a group project. It's a group of all guys, and one of them's been eyeing me the whole time. As I leave to walk out, he pulls me aside to pop the question. Are you transgender? Skipping the pleasantries today, are we? Yeah, I reply, and then quickly add a trans man. To be clear, that is a female to male transition, although I really don't like that term. You see, most people assume all of us are trans women, that is, male to female, because that makes for better inflammatory headlines, I guess. Anyway, I just wasn't in the mood to be told, wow, you look just like a woman. Thanks. It's the opposite of the goal. He keeps asking questions about my body. Do I still have my lady parts? What will hormone therapy do to them? And it's not the first time I've been undressed by a stranger's words. Certainly won't be the last, but I still can't help but imagine my description typed into a Pornhub search bar. Oh, and for your information, there's not a single magical surgery that will fix my body as much as I wish there were. I go home, I refresh my ND Gmail, and there's a new email from the dean titled, Brothers and Sisters. You know, I think it would actually kill a Notre Dame dean to use gender-inclusive language, considering how they avoid it like the plague, even when saying siblings would flow better anyways. It's praising some new DEI initiative focused on race, sex, income. Yeah, no protections for gender identity. I'm invisible to this university as I'm scrutinized by my peers. I'm anonymous. Anonymous to group project guy who sees me as just a piece of meat, and anonymous to the university who sees me as a statistic, if at all. In fact, submitting this confidential monologue is probably the least anonymous I've been on this damn campus, considering there's so few of us who dare to come out that the few details I've given here are enough to narrow it down. But you know what? That's fine. It would be a refresher to get called out by name, the name I chose for myself. The name that detaches me from a childhood of being called he, she, boy, girl, transvestite, freak by my classmates and family. And the name that takes me into the future as the man I know I am. Oh, and the name that my professors don't use, because their right to avoid a minor inconvenience trumps my right to basic respect. I'm tired. I put on a smiling face most days because I'm a leader for the queer community on campus, and the students I mentor need to see me thriving so that they'll have the confidence to be their true selves. But the truth is, I'm fucking exhausted. The next person to ask if I still have tits is getting smacked. And I can see the headline now. Deranged tranny assaults innocent, respected college student, completely unprovoked.
Quiet and shy black girl. It must be a myth. Or maybe they're talking about an endangered species. But how would we know when all we see is a resting bitch face? Quiet and shy black girl. Hiding my insecurities and anxiety with a frown. I promise I'm approachable. I promise I'm cool. And I promise I'm funny. I just don't know how to show it, so I retreat to my safe haven of a frown. Quiet and shy black girl. It just can't be true. Maybe you're thinking about a dream or a fairy tale, a mythical creature that can't have emotions besides anger or have any normal emotion. Quiet and shy black girl. The psychological and mental scars placed on my ancestors so permeate. They don't seem to disappear. And now I am here with my own scars, somehow similar to the ancestors and some only similar in their impact on us. Nonetheless, we are all left with images painted by our oppressors and attached to us without our consent. And how do I deal with this? Well, I just hide in my safe haven, which is behind a frown.
I'm sitting in my room, looking at my phone. It's night. I'm looking at his Instagram account. It's private. I used to be one of his 1,098 followers, but that was when I was a freshman and before everything happened. But I want to see how he's doing. I want to see what he looks like, and if he has a job, and who his friends are. I want to see the boy I was friends with when I was younger. The kid I first remember from 4th grade when we did a project together on the Jefferson Memorial. I remember when his mom died, and when we sat next to each other in high school band, and when he graduated as valedictorian, and the whole school was proud of him, including me. Is it wrong for me to follow my rapist on Instagram? I can barely make out his face in his profile photo, but I want to actually see him, DM him. Hey, what are you up to? Did you graduate college? Become an optometrist, like you always talked about? Do you know if he raped me that one night? Because I can't remember what happened. But I woke up in bed, next to you, with blood between my legs. And I'm just wondering if you could clear some things up for me. I don't have to actually DM him. I can just look at his profile, see if he seems the same, normal. Not like someone who would rape their childhood friend. What does a rapist look like? Not like him. That's why I didn't expect it, why I didn't report it, why I let all of our friends think it was an average, drunk New Year's Eve hookup. They still don't know. They'll never know. I don't want them to know. But I want him to know. I want to confront him, ask him questions. I can't remember that night, but maybe he can, and maybe he can tell me that he didn't actually rape me. Maybe we just kissed and went to sleep. But the blood, but the memory of him inside me, but me waking up to him accidentally hitting me in the face while he's asleep, and I'm in a pair of extra, extra large women's running shorts. And that's it. I want to know what happened to me. I have a right to know what happened to me. I'm angry at him sometimes, but not today. Today I feel sad, and I miss the boy I was friends with. I feel bad for him. How did we get here? I want to go back. I tapped the follow button.
Even arboretums separate species and get to call themselves diverse. But honey, you stick out like a weed in a rose bush. They will call you injurious regarding the fact that you increase pollination. You are a dandelion amongst daffodils, and they will wish you away. Don't let them whisk you away. Real magnolias aren't made of steel, and in case you forgot, you are not white. You can't use your own seeds to wish away your molasses. You'll be plucked from your home without your consent, relocated, redlined, re-educated, or so they think they educated you when they commend you for impressively articulating yourself and applaud you for being well-spoken. Applaud themselves for preserving an invasive species, an endangered species.
That Sunday began the same way all the others did. Waking up next to you, sunlight through the window slats casting shadows through your hair, the good morning kiss, 2 cups of coffee in favorite mugs, a search through the pantry for Bisquick, and a decision to make pancakes from scratch because we had nothing but time in the world. And we cooked and we danced, and you sang a little bit of everything as I hugged you from behind. And I love you for it. That Sunday continued the same way all the others did. You told me that I was beautiful, that I deserved the world. You told me that I deserved love and space and care. You said that I was worth waiting for, that I could take my time, that I only had to do what I was comfortable with. We tried it twice, and I realized I wasn't there yet. It felt too rushed, too vulnerable, too and personal. So I took my time, and you pushed small comments. Don't you love me? A hand reaching where I didn't want it to. We were already dating, we were almost living together. You showed up and never left, which is close enough. Weren't we already there? Didn't I find you beautiful? And when I'd pull away from your touch, you just try again and again, and you turn a movie into a makeout session. You'd strip to nothing but underwear and walk through my room, pretending not to notice I was on call with someone else, asking if I could help you with something in the other room, while all the guys in my headset laughed and called me lucky, telling me to go get her. If I didn't, well, what kind of man was I? I never felt lucky. Just wanted Sunday morning pancakes. And it didn't take long to realize those were conditional. You texted back and forth with my best friend, placing bets on how long it would take to wear me down. I was a teenage boy. I would come around. The answer? 1 month. In a moment, I still relive half the nights I fall asleep. Me, paralyzed in front of you. It took 2 years of reliving that dream to realize I never wanted to make that choice. You pressed me afterwards until I assured you it was what I wanted, that I hadn't been forced into anything. Not wanting wasn't an option. Guy always wants it, right? Besides, if I blamed you for all of this, would we still make pancakes in the morning? I loved you, and I told you that. You met my cousins, had tea with my grandmother, and each of them would joke that even if the two of you break up, I'm still inviting her to Christmas. You started to drink with my dad and shop with my mom. And every day you just tell me how lucky you were to finally have someone take you in. I loved you for it. But you get mad at me for talking to my friends. You assure me you'd never want to separate me from them. You never wanted me to give them up. You reach for my arm, sobbing that you can't understand why I can't be enough, as if one person could replace my entire life. I loved you for it. And you'd hit on me, and you'd grope me, and you'd make comment after comment until once every few weeks I'd give in, and we'd have sex, and I'd do my best to want it, but even when you made me I never wanted it. And you assured me that it was all okay, that I could take my time, that I only had to do what I was comfortable with, I was safe. You just wear me down eventually. I know that even then, you thought you were the best thing to ever happen to me. I loved you for it. I stopped talking to everyone. I stopped talking. I stopped enjoying waking up and stopped noticing when the days passed. I stopped writing after doing so daily for 5 years because it took too much time away from you. And I faked being sick whenever I could, just to sit in another room, staring at the wall, trying to churn through how I felt. That was the only time I was allowed to feel anything other than love for you. It wasn't abuse. You were half my height. And you never hit me. And I was in love. How could that be abuse? A few months passed, and when you moved to a new college, we didn't talk for weeks. I tried to convince myself I was sad. I tried to convince myself I was happy. When you started calling me by the wrong name after a single month apart, mistaking me for your newest boy toy, my heart broke and soared. I find it hard not to love you for the mornings and hate you for the evenings, but I do both every Sunday. You demanded all of me. The smell of pancakes reminds me of you. in farmers markets, the song The General by Dispatch, and the letters you still write my grandmother. My own bed, my game nights, my fear of sex, the jacket you bought me, and the chocolate rocks I still find in my cupboard. The friends I never reconnected with, and the dreams I wake from sobbing. Our favorite Thai place, so spicy you wouldn't kiss me for a day. I see you in my backyard, in the stars, and a drunk girl at a party putting her hand where it doesn't belong. I love you for it. I see you in sunlight through the curtains, dancing in the kitchen. In my panic attacks where all I need is silence, where all I wanted was to be alone. I remember you on Sunday mornings, when I wake up and wonder whether or not you still love me. And every time I slowly mouth the word no, feeling it roll off my tongue, trying to burn that feeling into memory.
I open the survey. This first section is for reporting purposes only. The following optional questions are in regards to your identity. Okay. Are you of Hispanic or Latino descent? I'm not quite sure what they mean. I'm going to skip this and come back to it. Select your race from the list below. White, I guess. Seems like that's what they were looking for. I guess I'll put down Latino. Wait. Should I really be calling myself Latino? I mean, for all intents and purposes, I'm just plain old, boring American white. From my pale skin and blue eyes to my blonde hair. Heck, I see plenty of other very white students who look just like me all the time. Sure, yeah, my abuela was Mexican and tried very hard to instill an appreciation for my culture in me before she died. But that never really got through to me while she was alive. The rest of my upbringing was no different from what I saw of the white people I grew up with. Nuclear family, upper middle class, suburbs, English only, private school. I am privileged. I shouldn't take away from the actual Latino people who get treated differently based on their language, their culture, their appearance. All things I wish I was more connected to. But it's not like I chose to be detached from this. I was raised with a tenuous connection to my abuela's culture, which snapped when she stopped being a part of my life. Now I find myself wishing I'd spend more time learning her language rather than getting caught up with being a kid. I want to be connected to that portion of my family. It's not like I chose to live like this. After all, my genes could have been more like my uncles and cousins. Warm brown skin, gentle brown eyes, and jet black hair. I stand out at family gatherings with my icy blue eyes, pale skin, and dirty blonde hair. Maybe if I looked like them, I wouldn't feel as guilty trying to connect to a culture that is my birthright. But they're still my family, and their legacy lives on, through me. I sigh one last time. I settle down to return to my survey. Race, white. Ethnicity, Latino.
I've been disabled since I was 14. Well, my whole life, but I didn't know till I was 14. I've had academic accommodations for 7 years and meds for almost 2. I have many disabilities, so I won't get into it. But know that they all live inside my brain. All the time, all invisible, all present. I like being disabled. I like the way I stim by waving my arms when I'm excited. I like when my tics are accidentally comically timed. I like that I can hyperfocus on the things that make me happy. I like my special interests. I like the way music sounds in my noise-canceling headphones. I like watching movies with subtitles. I like my hyper-empathy. I like that I'm really bad at lying. I like that I pick up hobbies like little kids pick up cool rocks. I like that this is who I am. But I don't like other parts of it all. My disabled traits aren't always cute and palatable. I don't like explaining for the millionth time that I'm not shouting, snapping, or jerking my head on purpose. I don't like when conversations get too loud at a party and I feel like screaming. I can be having a great time and need to excuse myself because sensory overload took me out again. I don't like missing social cues and having no idea how flirting works. I don't like that every criticism feels like a knife in my chest. I don't like when the gray storm cloud creeps in when I'm about to have a panic attack. I see it coming and there's nothing to do but wait until it leaves. When I don't leave fast enough, my friends have to watch me spiral, and I worry that they're worried about me. I don't like that I have to keep proving and showing evidence that I'm disabled enough to get extra time on tests. I don't like them currently missing a diagnosis because I don't have the money to get one. I don't like that I'll spend the rest of my life contemplating whether or not to tell my employer I'm disabled. I don't like having to keep proving and proving and proving that I'm not sick, but at the same time, I won't get better. This is forever, so I better like my disabled self because I'm stuck this way. I wish I got to be your spunky, quirky little neurodivergent girl, but I'm not just from New Girl. And if you're sitting there thinking that she's neurotypical, watch that show again. Much as I wish I was a cutesy, peculiar in a good way, main character energy, easy to love muse, I am not. The inside of my head sounds like a school bus on a way to a museum. Someone's telling me why nobody loves me. Someone else is reciting a very long to-do list. Another person is explaining the entire plot to Star Trek DS9. And the kid in the back is belting Lizzo. Someone else is shouting, "You're too much." Someone's eating gum off the floor, 3 people are screaming, and I'm just driving. Sometimes I'm desperate for a destination, a rest area, a stoplight. I am daring anyone else to get on this bus and ask me again why I'm driving under the speed limit. But I love my busload of kiddos. I do anything for them because they are me, and I'm responsible for their well-being. Is Adderall my equivalent of giving the hyper kids melatonin? Yes, but I love my life, and I love myself. It's a mess, but it's mine. It's a disaster. A beautiful, kind, anxious, awkward, honest, sensory sensitive, dopamine deficient disaster.
Their lives are full of colors, rose, teal, and blue. They bring orange to the classroom and lime when they chat behind me. And the parties they show me on social media are amethyst and red and cyan. It seems like everyone is out here living their best lives, radiating color. Bright pink, warm gold, and lively tan meet me everywhere on campus. Magenta, in my professor's voice, says he reviews our most recent quiz. And there is lavender in how the janitor greets me as I enter the room 30 minutes before my class starts. My synesthesia makes every person a flash of bright and interesting color in my consciousness. So why am I gray?
Following a club photo shoot, I joined a male peer and one of his friends for an impromptu dinner at North Dining Hall. I swiped my ID, but did not eat. He had announced he had something to share involving the police before we had settled in. I could already tell nothing would settle in my stomach following what was to come. It was there, between 2 plates of food, 3 shiny aluminum chairs, and 2 female companions, that he had confessed he had been brought in after allegations were made against him for choking a female student. I resisted the urge to reach for my own throat, to reach for the memory of him forcing himself down my throat. I simply nodded as he spoke, thought it'd be best if I swallowed my tongue, thought against it for not wanting to risk raising any suspicion he might feel coming off of me. I said things like, "Wow, really?" And "That's unbelievable." I didn't speak after that last comment, as I hadn't found my forced perplexity to be convincing. I'd officially become the 4th person he confessed to. The first was the police upon being summoned. The second, a man he considered his best friend and current roommate. And the third was a woman sitting next to him, yet across from me. Another close friend of his. I watched them both. The woman listened attentively and didn't seem to be struggling to keep her composure like I was. A sign to fix my face, and fix it quickly. I learned at a young age, God didn't like ugly. And what I was feeling was something very ugly. He assured us that the students' claims were nonsense, and that God would be on his side in the end, that the law was on his side then, and insisted that she assaulted him first, therefore he got to press charges. Fortunately for her, he was feeling merciful. Both of their actions could very well be true, but our history lingered like an open, rotting wound. I suppose this was my plate, festering, forgotten. I was distraught. I believed him and his victim. What I didn't believe was the order of events, especially after he mocked her for expressing her fear of him in the aftermath. He reeked of arrogance. It masked an infallible shame that hung in the air. And finally, it had been declared, no weapon shall prosper against him. Once I heard enough, I briskly said my goodbyes and began my trek down Rape Road. The irony was lost on me, and yet it desperately and aimlessly attempted to wrap its tendrils of truth around a throat that resisted its hold. A reminder, perhaps. The fact that there had long been a name given to the distance between us was horrifying. This moment, among others before it, should have woken me from my stupor. It didn't. It couldn't. Not when I left my body every time he came in it. It was a pain that I just didn't know how to bear. So I simply took this new information as an affirmation that something dark and twisted had transpired between us. Unwilling to be named, I was determined not to name what he had turned us into. Rapist and victim. It could not be real unless I gave it a name. Instead, I would listen to The Lord Is Coming by her on repeat for the entirety of my walk. I would immediately tell my closest friend. We never spoke of it again beyond my reveal. It would take months to wake me. It would take the next time he raped me. Hours later, I would seek out a name for this distance between us. It would be the last time I walked down that road by myself. It would feel like the longest walk of my life. Nonetheless, I marched forth. Fear not, listener. Her sang me from the depths of my subconsciousness, of my despair. She held me. She reacquainted me with our past, and most astonishingly, she reassured me that God was indeed a woman.
Listen up, because I'm not playing nice. It's time to shut up and step back. Showing up to this performance does not make you morally superior. If you're not doing anything else to help, you are still part of the problem. You listen to these stories, you think, wow, that sucks, and then just forget about it. Sure, maybe you were inspired to do something for the next day or two, but then what? We keep hurting. We are struggling through our very existences while you go about your day-to-day lives. Wake up. Help us. Look into ways you can help. The internet is full of resources, but please, don't be a part of the problem.
Have you ever wanted to succeed so fucking bad, it feels like it physically hurts? Like your ambition breeds anxiety that just makes it harder to actualize that ambition? I feel like that's how I've felt every single day since the first time somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. It's like that single, innocent question sent 8-year-old me down a lifelong spiral of wanting greatness. I want to do the most amazing things imaginable. I want to tell stories. I want to help people understand themselves and their compassion. I want my name under the brightest fucking lights so bad that the idea of not getting there just makes me want to stay locked up in my room under my bed sheets for weeks. But it's not all bad though, like I might make it sound. You know, it ebbs and it flows. It can be a great source of inspiration just as much as it can be an overwhelming fear. Just as much as I'm thinking about what makes me different is holding me back, I'm thinking about how it can be a superpower. I spent years in the closet, just myself and my dreams, because I thought gay could never equal success. I heard how adults around me talked about queer people, like they succeeded in spite of who or what they were. It took me so long and a lot of shitty learning experiences to understand how wrong that was. Queer people don't succeed in spite of who we are. We succeed because of who we are. As awful as that closet may have been, it forged me into who I am today. A person who is not just capable of making his dreams into a reality with his own hands, but one who is insanely fucking excited to do it. Not fearless. I will never be fearless, but brave. Some insecurity and anxiety will always be there, but I have gotten to a point where I can acknowledge them instead of pretending that they don't exist and enthusiastically tell them to fuck off. Because I am that bitch. Because I am a fucking supernova. I always have been. Even in that dark closet, and I always will be. Even when I forget that I am.
I could not be more proud of myself. My first day of volunteering happened to be the morning of my 20th birthday. No celebration could top the quiet triumph that pulls through me as I started a training module. Inside, I congratulated every version of myself that somehow got me here. I could have just shouted out my thanks to God for keeping me alive and for carrying me through. Over many, many years and many, many tears, I made it to the other side. Overcoming culminated as I entered the building and introduced myself. With this work, I pushed back. My supervisor gave me a tour of the building. Everything logical, operational, sensical. And then we reached the area where the kids play before their forensic interviews, before their counseling, before gentle questions about terrible things. My supervisor explained how they aim to keep the play area as fun and engaging as possible, while also discouraging associations that a child could make between their trauma and play. A play kitchen, train tracks, building blocks, and even a fish tank. A fish tank. Train tracks. When I was little, I peered into a similar fish tank, in a different building, and in a different state, but with the same fate. This was after the first assault at school when I was 4 years old. Even after the wave of discomfort that overwhelmed me, when my interviewer asked me to point out on a diagram where he touched me, I asked the ladies at the front desk if I could return to peer at the fish and play with the trains. I genuinely wanted to return. And in the following 16 years of healing, I have recognized that place as a beacon of goodness amidst the evil of which humans are capable. I did not return after the next assault when I was 6. It was New Year's Day at my best friend's house. Again, in the bathroom. Again, her dad. The betrayal that an adult responsible for my protection was the one to seek out my harm and inflict it himself was too much for my young brain. Terror and confusion were equally mixed creating an impenetrable barrier between me and the clarity of my memories. The DNA evidence was lost, and with it, a solid case. Why do you keep asking me these questions? Nothing happened. Stop asking me these questions. I vehemently defended him when my distraught parents gingerly inquired, trying to make sense of it all. When I was 12, realization clicked into place. At that exact moment, I felt something snap inside of me, deep within my abdomen, with disgust withering my guts. I lived with PTSD for the next several years, and when I was 15, I put aside my fears of his retaliation and insisted upon an investigation. For my friend, I would return from school, be interviewed by Lisa from Child Protective Services, retreat, to fall apart, and then start on my homework. Uncertainty about my childhood best friend's safety is the only open wound I have left. The investigation closed, but I saw my abuser for the first time in 9 years, randomly, stuck in traffic, on the day of his interview with CPS. To see how fear contorted his face. It was a gift from God. And also the only justice I'll ever get here on earth. Since then, I've healed tremendously. I no longer have an instinctual fear of men. I'm not scared of intimacy, emotional or physical. My friendships and romantic relationships are healthy because I've sought out the ones that are right for me. My parents have been able to observe me pick myself out of the mire. I've overcome anorexia, severe body dysmorphia, chronic illness, PTSD, and nightmares, persistent depression, anxiety, and long-term relentless suicidal ideation. I am a powerhouse of good. I am proud of how I take care of myself and my friends. I do not fear the future. I seethe at injustice, especially against those who cannot protect themselves. I am excited for the rest of my life, something I could not even fathom just 2.5 years ago. To any survivors, I am so proud of you. I am so proud of you. You have overcome your toughest days to this point, overcoming the weight of invisible pain. You have the strength to continue, even if you do not believe it. I say these things because I survived. I now thrive. My triumph arrived gradually and quietly, but at the same time with a ringing, roaring chorus of hallelujah. I look back at photos of my younger self, comparing them to now. Despite all the in-between, my goofy, gleaming, full-teeth grin has not changed. No one can take away my light.